All right, so beautiful day here in Santa Cruz. It's partly cloudy, but I think the sun is gonna come out eventually. Let me show you what I'm thinking. All right, I'm thinking of making something of this scene right here. There's some beautiful colors in the water and also the sky, especially along the horizon. There's some like purple fog. I might exaggerate that. I like this grouping of trees right here. I've got my usual palette of colors, but I did squeeze out some turquoise today using Liquid Original for my medium, and I'm painting over an old 11 by 14 inch panel. Sketching in burnt sienna. I think I want the horizon at the top third, some trees over here, and then the rocks coming down kind of like this. I just need some basic lines so I can start massing things in. All right, using ultramarine blue, some of this aqua color, which I'm sorry I don't know the name of it. It's actually from Utrecht, and titanium white. First step, I'm just kind of blocking in the sky here. One of the nice things about painting over old paintings is it forces you to, to look at shapes. All right, I think that's pretty good right there. All right, so for the water, I've got a mixture of titanium white, ultramarine blue, cadmium yellow medium, and I'm graying it down a bit with this burnt sienna. I like to gray down my colors using complements. So the complement of blue is orange. So perfect way to gray this mixture down. And there's gonna be some waves in the distance. Actually, there's gonna be some waves in the foreground as well. And the whitewater shapes will be, a key part of the composition. All right, I've added a little bit of yellow to the mix because right in here, the water does get a little bit warmer in temperature. Not real temperature, obviously. Water's freezing here. Probably about 58 degrees, maybe. And there's going to be some white water in this area too, but I'm going to wait on putting that in, and I can always erase out areas of white water using a paper towel. But right now, just kind of tackling the biggest shapes. All right, mixing up a dark green using ultramarine blue, cadmium yellow medium, and a bit of burnt sienna. And I've thinned with liquid as usual. Often people ask how much liquid I use, and I don't really know the exact proportion. It's just kind of a feel thing depending on how liquid I want the paint to be. So in the early stages I use more liquid, and then as the painting progresses I use less, when I want the paint to be thicker. All right, next I'm going to mix up a color for these rocks. I'm using dioxazine purple, and I'm graying it down with yellow ochre, squinting at the scene, looking for the darkest darks. And I'm using a natural bristle number 8. Even though this is a fairly small panel, I'm going to try to use this brush for the whole painting. It'll keep me from getting too detail oriented. There's actually a shadow up here, and then some shadows kind of going down like that. All right, and I'm always looking at the shapes to make sure that I like the arrangement. There are some darks off in the distance here as well. All right, so for the rocks in the foreground, I'm just adding some yellow ochre to this mix that I use for my shadows. And I'm starting out with a mid-tone value because I want to make sure that I still have some headroom, so to speak. When I want to put in the lights here, I want them to stand out, because there's the white water is really bright compared to these rocks. I want to make sure that the rocks aren't too light in value. That's something I used to do quite often, because when you're staring at the rocks, they seem so bright. But the best thing to do is to compare that value, to the lightest value in the scene, and in this case it is the white water. All right, just added some titanium white and a bit more yellow ochre. There's some areas of light out on these rocks. Kind of comes through here. If you haven't painted over old panels, I highly recommend it. It's just a great way to experiment and as I said before, and you know, kind of focus on shapes. Use a big brush, use a lot of paint, play around, have a good time. And you've really got nothing to lose because you're just, you know, working over a painting that didn't work out. So I find it really enjoyable, and I've learned a lot painting this way, and actually you've come up with some decent results. All right, mixing up a mid-value green using ultramarine blue and cadmium yellow medium. And people have asked, you know, if I use regular alizarin or alizarin permanent, and I use the you know, regular or original, because look at the way that warms up that green. It's just beautiful. I don't know if you can see that, but you know, the permanent alizarin is a totally different color, and I just love original alizarin. When you use it in mixes, it is actually rated at a number 2 on the light fast meter, which for me that's plenty good for me. If you use it for glazes, then it's less stable or less light fast. Grabbing some of this light sand mixture here. There's sort of a trail at the top of the cliff here. All right, so at this point I've got the big shapes blocked in, and so now I'm going to work into each of these shapes and try to look for subtle shifts in color and value. But I'm going to be careful to use subtle shifts so that I don't break up the design. For example, in the sky here, there's some purple along the horizon, and then it goes from like an aqua up to more of an ultramarine. But those shifts are very delicate. All right, so for the fog, I'm using titanium white, ultramarine blue, and dioxazine purple. That seems like a pretty good value to start with. I'm trying to keep a lot of paint on my brush. I'm gonna bump up the fog over here just to create a little bit of variety, and then maybe it'll, you know, taper down to the left, something like that. Right above the fog, the sky is kind of a cerulean color. I'm using this aqua mixture with some titanium white and a bit of yellow ochre. Try to keep the edge soft here. I can use my finger as well if I want to kind of soften that. And then this is gradually going to go up to more of an ultramarine color. All right, added a little more turquoise to the mix. Okay. I'm not getting total coverage with the paint, but that's all right. I like to see, you know, sort of little streaks of, you know, dark panel below. I don't mind that at all. All right, adding a touch of ultramarine to the mix. If you're trying to learn to paint looser, this is also a great exercise for, you know, loosening up, because I think one of the things that, you know, impedes our progress as far as loosening up goes is just, you know, being too careful. When you're painting over an old painting, you tend to be a little bit more comfortable with experimentation. At least I feel that way. All right, so I feel like these color transitions are subtle, and yet I was able to achieve, you know, some saturation. Next step will be to, you know, paint the color in along the horizon here. So again, I'm going to want to pay attention to values. I'm looking at the white water out here, and I want to make sure that the surrounding water is, you know, dark enough that it makes that white water pop. So for the dark water on the horizon, I'm using ultramarine blue, phthalo blue, titanium white, and a touch of yellow ochre. I could probably get by with one yellow on my palette, cadmium yellow medium. But as far as like blues, I feel like I need phthalo blue for those saturated greens, and then also the, you know, kind of these dark blue greens. All right, so I've added some cadmium yellow medium to my aqua mixture here. There's some areas of blue-green, lighter blue-green out in the water. I'm kind of exaggerating, but I can always tone down. I can tone down this color later if I want to. All right, and there's some of that green in close as well. All right, using ultramarine blue and titanium white and a bit of yellow ochre. And what I find is I just approximate these colors, and then when I add the white water, it all sort of comes together. All right, so these rocks sticking out are kind of now in shadow, and I like the pattern, so I'm gonna go with it. All right, so adding some ultramarine blue to create some sort of shadow shapes along the base of the rocks. All right, for the white water, I'm using titanium white and dioxazine purple. I'm going to try to be kind of spontaneous with this paint application in here. Almost like mimicking, you know, the motion of the water. Waves kind of coming in here. Maybe like that. The top of the broken wave and behind it, it's kind of lighter in color, so I added a bit of yellow there. That'll maybe help make this rock stand out a bit as well. And there's some white water over here too. All right, for distant waves, I'm using ultramarine, dioxazine purple, and titanium white. And this is where you can get tempted to break out, you know, a smaller brush, but I'm going to try not to do that. Just use this larger brush as long as I can. But I want to make sure that these waves are small enough that they look, you know, like they're in the distance. Okay, using some titanium white and yellow ochre. There are a few pops of light out along these rocks. So I just kind of indicate, you know, some of that. And then also little bits along here as well. All right, so I added some dioxazine purple to my dark green mixture. Kind of punch up the darks in these trees. All right, titanium white and ultramarine blue here. Just adding a few sky reflections onto the surface of the water. And I've got to be really subtle with this. Don't want to overdo it. All right, titanium white with a bit of cadmium yellow lemon. Nice to have little bits of, you know, warm against cool in the white water to create luminosity. Some along the top of the waves there. Also on this wave right here, I think. Kind of punch that up a little bit. All right, so here's what I finished up with. I spent about an hour on this painting, start to finish. I did complete it in the field. It looks like I could have actually, you know, darkened this distant fog bank a bit. You know, I was being careful not to have too dark of a value there. I wanted the sky to have an open and airy kind of feel. But it looks like I probably could have darkened that just a bit more. And then also I could have darkened the horizon more as well and pushed the blue back there. But these are just sort of minor details. Also, I could have warmed up the foreground as well. All of those are things that I can do after the painting dries. But there it is. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you'd like to see some extra videos and help support the channel, there's a Patreon link down below. Got a bunch of extra videos and a materials list, so check it out. Other than that, stay creative, and I'll see you guys in the next video.